This is episode 4 of Bringing the Heat with Grant Farrow of Mr Saucez. Welcome, Grant. Now, tell me, how'd you get started with hot sauce?
I actually run 2 other companies. So what happened was about 2 years ago now, obviously you don't start a sauce company or you don't start making sauces if you don't have a passion. So, what tends to happen with a lot of the industry and what I've realized getting into the chili group is we all have the same passions. You either run with it and dedicate yourself to it and it becomes a job. Otherwise, you sort of play on the fringe for years and years. You get called Mr. Marinade and then eventually Mr. Saucez because you do all of these things. And then my wife actually lost her job. So that was probably 2 years ago. And she tried probably for about 7 odd months, applying for a job. And, that didn't respond to you. It just was a very negative process. And she was getting more and more demoralized, etc. And I said, you know what? I've anticipated selling one of my companies, which is dragging on. However, I said, if this is something we wanted to do, let's push the button on Mr. Saucez. Let's actually take it to the next level. I'll employ you. The passion's there, and we do it together anyway. So you can do it full time. You can stay at home. You can, it's a very, very flexible kind of thing, and obviously volume will dictate how you expand. That was all well and good until we couldn't get the type of chilies that I needed. Now, I'm basically in a company that I work in. I'm the kind of person that if I need something, I will source the world till I find it. We get it manufactured and then we give it to someone. So it was no different. I thought I'll just sort of find some Serrano chilies. And the deeper I dug into it, the quicker I realized, well, WA is this little island in the middle of nowhere. And we actually have some serious geographical problems. We don't have the certain type of diseases that the eastern states have, so we can't bring in whole pods. We also can't bring in chili flakes with seeds in, etc. So you sit there going, okay, so now I can't import from the rest of the world. I can't import from the eastern states, and we're sitting here stuck. The funny thing is, I also realized that we can export. We can export over east and we can export overseas. So I went, okay, well, therein lies an opportunity. So I was stuck where I couldn't get the type of chili that I needed. So a long story short, we actually hired a farmer along the way that was, first of all, he was a certified organic farmer. And the reason I stumbled upon him was someone said I should get hold of him because he had heaps of chilies. So I got hold of him and the heaps of chilies were jalapenos. Now, if you take a bunch of jalapenos to the chili seed exchange or the forums, you get laughed at. I mean, we're talking super hot country. So I spoke to the farmer and he seemed to know what he was talking about. We're talking about a season before, so you actually need to get your seeds and things ordered the season before so they can plant seedlings, etc. So by September, they're ready to go. So I spoke to him and he said, no, he's been let down too many times. He's not going to grow for anyone, etc., etc. Now, this was pretty much the last straw. I'd spoken to everyone about supplying Serranos, couldn't get it. So I then said to him, I said, well, what chilies have you got? He said, well, jalapenos. And I said, okay. I said, how much? And he said, well, the certified organics, so technically they should be more expensive, but I can't get rid of them. And there's sort of 2 acres on the bush. And this is the situation he finds himself in. So I said, okay. I said, I'll take 100 kilos. And he said, oh, okay, that's $2 a kilo. I said, no. I'll pay $4 a kilo. And he went, why would you do that? And I said, because I know you're going to grow Serranos for me next season. And he went, you're right. And so I bought 100 kilos. They landed up here. I ended up putting them on the forum and we got rid of some poppers and everyone was doing pickled jalapenos and poppers, etc. And I was actually pretty much giving them away. And that actually got me a secure farmer who was prepared to grow 750 bushes for me, 500 bushes of Serrano, 250 bushes of bird's eye. So that was last season. Supposed to go in the ground in September. Now, we've had the crappiest summer in the world. Everyone's been affected. No one can get pods. And therein lies another problem. So I decided to start bringing some spices in, ground pods, so actual powder. And I started supplying some of the people in the chili game. So a lot of the jerky makers and a lot of the sauce makers actually use some of the spices that I can get in. I pretty much let them go at cost, because what it's about is it's about helping the chili community. It's a very, very tight-knit group. They're the most incredible people. People like Paul, I've supplied him things, he supplied me things. It's just a lot of good people. So we've developed quite a bit through the group. And anyway, I 3 weeks ago picked up 250 kilos of chilies. I had to get 2 500-litre freezers. Then I picked another 250 kilograms of chilies. So we're now at the point where we've got enough. But now we're actually on to the next level. So I couldn't actually supply stores because I didn't want to go and promise someone a product and then have to under-deliver or not have a continuous supply. So in the meantime, I've been getting all my labeling correct. We've been through a certification process. You take it to a lab, test your pH, sort all of that stuff out. That's all been done ages ago. But new labels have been done, ready for shelves, store, etc. And that's the next phase. So now I'm actually looking, because I've got chilies, at expanding, and how we expand is where we're at next.
Okay. If we could just take it back a little bit further, how did it all actually start for you? At what point did you say, okay, well, maybe I've got a chili bush outside, I'll just try and make a sauce? Where did it actually begin?
Okay, so I've always been experimenting. And I've always made my own sauces. So whether it's mixing up, rib sauce 10 plus years ago, I've always done that. I've always had my own recipe file. So, whatever sauce or marinade it is, I'd go to a restaurant, and this is probably 15 years ago. I'd go to a restaurant, taste some prawns, and literally reverse analyze it in my head. I have the unique ability to have a very, very dexterous palate, I suppose, if you want to call it something. I can taste something and I'll know pretty much what's in it. It blows me away sometimes, because I'll come back, I'll actually give it a first go, and usually I'm 90% there. Nando's was a big influence for me. As you can hear, I've probably got a little bit of an accent still. I've been here for 23, 24 years, but Nando's is from South Africa. It's Portuguese influence, but they were first store was in South Africa, and that was our go-to food. You'd go get an extra hot Nando's burger even way back then, and you'd eat 2 of them, and that was your default hangover food, I suppose. And so for me, that flavor was just something that I always loved, And after moving here, there were Nando's, restaurants here, and that's always been a litmus test for me, the flavor and the taste, the lemony, the chicken, on the coals, for me has always been a good thing. So I've always done a version of or with Nando's on the open coals, and that's what we've eaten. Whether it's pieces of chicken, wings, breasts, etc. So that was always something that I strived to. That's why I started Peri Peri itself. And the funny thing is, when I went down this journey, I did grow my own bushes to find out what the flavor was, and the missing flavor was serrano chilies for me. So I had bird's eyes, and it was just off. It wasn't quite there. It was only when I grew serranos, did my first batch, and it was a light bulb moment. I went, okay, now I've found the missing ingredient. So for me, that was probably about 3 years ago that I'd sort of, in inverted commas, nailed it. Happy with myself. So it took another 2 years of experimenting, growing chilies, etc., before you've really nailed it. But for me, it was a balance, because I didn't want any crap in the sauce. It's one of those things, you want an MSG free. We've got organic chilies as a start, so you want to try and keep that ethos down. If you look at the back of our labels, I mean, the sugar's 0.4 of a gram per serving. It's negligible. So low salt, low sugar. We we have the right pH so the sauces last. It's just that was the overriding thing. Once I'd done that, it got me excited about sauces again. And the push the button moment was when Philippa couldn't find a job, and I said, you know what, I'm happy that I'm going to launch a commercial sauce. Funnily enough, the West Australian Chili Seed Exchange has a tri-monthly, I suppose, every quarter, we have a get-together and a group get-together. We're now heading, at the end of April, I think it's the 5th or 6th one. We've been to every single one, and we've had a little stand there. And it was the first one that actually took some samples to the guys and said, what do you think? And I, put some ghost chili in it, and the guys were blown away. You definitely have to do this. So 3 months later, I'd already had my branding done, my labeling done, chosen bottles ready to go. It literally happened that quickly. An overnight success, 3 years in the making.
So what do you think goes into a really strong flavoured hot sauce? I mean, for you, is it about heat? Is it about, obviously with peri peri, it's more about the flavour. What do you personally like to see in a hot sauce?
Okay, 100%. So one of our mottos, if you look at any of our bottles, it's flavour first. You got to remember, I look at things commercially. I'd like to keep my customers. So if you give someone a spoon of sauce and you never ever finish the bottle, it's not commercially viable. It's also not pleasant. My motto is that I want someone to grab the bottle and literally drink it. So they're going to come back next week for another bottle because, number one, they love it. Number two, it's finished. I try and go for a flavor palette, and a couple of secrets here, but I try and use fresh pods. I try and use powder, and I try and use flakes. Reason being is the fresh pods give you that fresh chili flavor, which is nice, and I suppose texturally you also get that freshness. The powder gives you a depth of flavor, and is also, because it's dry, it kind of reconstitutes and gives that difference. And then the flakes themselves add like a raisiny kind of, how a raisin is just deeper than a grape. A grape is raw, raisin is like a dried kind of flavor. You get this whole different flavor profile through the palate, and that's what I try and do. So most of my sauces are based on that. So I won't only add fresh garlic, I'll add garlic and garlic powder. I won't only add fresh onion, I'll add onion and onion powder. It actually gives a different flavor profile and a depth. So that's my philosophy, and that's what I try and do with most sauces. So that's me.
Good inside tips. Appreciate that one.
Damn it.
So tell me, what different flavors do you have at the moment? Obviously, you got peri peri, which I've had and is awesome. And you mentioned, you want to have a sauce that people can drink straight from the bottle. And we'll talk about how the people can connect with you later, but there is photos or video on Instagram, etc., of people doing that. And it's tasty stuff. What other sauces do you have in your range at the moment?
So we have peri peri from mild, hot, Scorpion Reaper, super hot, and then there's a new sauce coming out. I don't know how much I can say or swear on this channel, but it's hot as fuck. It's a new brand that will be coming out, and look out for that. But we have a range of mild sauces, funny enough. We have a roasted garlic and herb marinade, which is perfect for chicken or lamb. I've converted 2 non-lamb eaters, one being my wife, so I know it works. We have a salad dressing, which is zero heat. It's roasted peppers and garlic. We also have what we call a chunky chili, which we've won a few awards on our sauces. Number 1 was for the Scorpion peri peri. Number 2 was for the hot as fuck sauce. Sorry, Mum. And number 3 was for the chunky chili, which is literally grab a Philadelphia block of cheese and pour a bunch of chunky chili over it, and it's just, absolutely love it. So we've won a few awards for those type of sauces, but it's made of jalapenos. So
do you have a taco seasoning?
Certainly do, sir.
Okay.
So the seasonings, we have a taco seasoning, which is next to no heat. Then we have a taco seasoning, which is scorpion and reaper, just to cater for both. Then we have a steak seasoning, which is general. There's zero heat. And there's a new spice coming out, which is called peri peri. What our next thing that we're going to be doing is, with our sauces, it's fine having a sauce, but if you don't know how to cook with a sauce, it's quite difficult because you end up going, oh, I tasted that sauce, it was average or okay. So we're going to bring little how-tos in. For instance, if you grab my peri peri sauce, pour it in a bowl, then you grab the peri peri spice, pour some in, and add mayonnaise, it's exactly like Nando's Perinaise, but I'm going to show you how to make it. So in other words, it'll go a hell of a long way. A jar of mayonnaise is $3, $4, $5, so you can make a hell of a lot more. And that's what I'm going to start doing. I'm going to show people how to cook with our sauces and how to make the best of the usage of them and get the best results.
Awesome. I guess just switching it up a little bit from talking about your sauce, I want to get, down to the bottom of the business side of it, and you've really explained how that all took place. But I guess I want to know, for those listening around the world that want to get started in a chili sauce business, whether it's a small batch just between family and friends or want to take it bigger, what would be some of your advice for people that are thinking about getting into this? Where should they start, really?
Okay, first of all, you've got to start with a passion, which most people will. Second of all, don't believe that just opening a chili company will make you heaps of money because everyone will buy it. The hardest thing is selling your product. And the second hardest thing is distribution. So if you don't have logistics as a killer, so in the States, you can open up anything and pretty much go, it's available on Amazon, ready, go. If you're in WA and you open up a company, we're restricted by distance. So in other words, if someone wants to buy a bottle of my sauce in Queensland, well, my sauce might cost $10 a bottle, but it's $15 postage. So it's very, very difficult to expand from a hobby and a passion to a full-grown sauce company. We've had packages. I've got one in the garage, which I've taken photos of. It's a $300 package going over to South America somewhere. You put it in a box, you wrap it up in bubble wrap, you insure it for $300. It comes back 2 months later, smashed into a ball, and literally the customer's going, where's my sauce? So I've actually kind of thought that the best thing, if you're a local company and it's all about buy local, you've got to approach the local people to promote. So go to your local IGAs, go to your farmers markets and that kind of stuff. That's the best way to go forward in a small, passionate chili fashion. But second of all, speak to someone on a chili forum about the rules, because it's very difficult. I'm fortunate enough because we have an IT background, so I know, I go to Google and I'll research everything about nearly everything. So I went and I searched about labeling rules. I went and searched about the health, the OH&S kitchen, etc. And I formulated my own kind of thing. Then you bounce it off. I then found the chili forum, which fortunate enough you were able to ask some questions. So ask questions from everyone. There's no such thing as a stupid question, but it's literally, you've got to do it right, because we are in a country and a place where food rules are extremely important. You can't just go supplying a sauce to everyone and have everyone fall ill. Your sauce has to be a certain pH. So you've got to learn where to get it tested, how to get it tested, etc. So, mate, just ask questions. I think that's the most important thing. And the forum that we're in is the West Australia Chili Seed Exchange. Everyone is there to help you. Mate, anyone can touch bases with me on mrsaucez.com or the Mr Saucez Facebook page. I'll help anyone. That's what it's all about. The reason I started Mr Saucez was to help my wife without a job, but in the process, we've received 250 kilograms of chilies. Well, I've got to rely on someone to help me. So you're calling all favors, but I've tended to call people that don't have jobs, that I know that are friends of mine that don't have jobs, and I'll call on them. Well, they're more than happy to help, number one. And number two, it helps them out with a little bit of money. So it's just being positive, thinking about things in a different way. And yeah, that's literally what we set out to do.
Yeah, and I think it's a good point that West Australian Chili Seed Exchange is a brilliant forum. I think it doesn't matter where you are in the world, you'd be more than welcomed as a member. And, from my own perspective, when I came back into this country from the UK only a year ago, joining that particular forum was an absolute game changer for me, and the advice that I got for everything that I was doing in that chili sort of space, even if it's only for making 5 bottles for your family and friends at Christmas, there's people more than willing to help you in whatever you need. So if you,
100%.
no matter where you are in the world, definitely get onto Facebook and get that sorted. Look, I just want to say, thank you very much for sharing your passion and experience with us. How can people find out more about you? What's your Instagram handle and Facebook page, etc.?
Instagram, absolutely. We're just Mr Saucez. And on Facebook, Mr Saucez Facebook as well. So it's Mr Saucez with a Z, and that's it. You can find us everywhere. So website's also mrsaucez.com. So it's pretty much, that's what it is.
Thanks for your time, Grant.
Oh, mate, you're welcome. Anytime.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Grant, for that interview, and I hope you all enjoyed it. As always, looking forward to firing it up next week. I'm your host, Cameron Parker, and if you want more information, just head to lordrascal.com/podcast. See you in the next episode.